taking the bus to the restaurant. We're not walking this time, okay? Yes, because we figured from yesterday it's better if someone else drives. Uh, and so there's a bus, even if it's a close distance. No, it's not a close distance this time. So I will introduce our first speaker. Yes? Okay. Yes?
And at 2 o'clock, the GIA group is gathering on the second floor, the room where we meet on Sunday. We had the AGM, the first session, so it is just on the second floor. You'll find it. We start with our program. It will be distributed just in the coffee break. We will have the quality methodology session, the sampling session, and then the end of the year. So 2 o'clock we start.
Okay, thank you. So may I introduce Mr. Alex Danmeyer from Digital Globe.
Thank you and good morning. This is the second time I've briefed at this conference. I think last time was in Ireland, so I appreciate the invitation to come back. So I work for a company called Digital Globe. It's a very large company that owns 5 satellites, and I have a short video that I'll show you on that. The part of the company I work for is the one that does analytics from that imagery and other sources. So I'll start the video and then I'll talk to you about that and show you a demo of a tool that we've developed to visualize polling data.
Status check. Go Atlas. Go Centaur. Go Worldview 4.
What does it take to see a better world?
3, 2, we have ignition. We have liftoff of the United Launch Alliance Atlas 5 rocket. Mr. Esmond had the MOV.
Start with a pioneering spirit, a legacy of perseverance, and a rich history of innovation. Add a network of trusted partners focused on a single mission: to expand the industry's leading constellation of high-resolution Earth imaging satellites. Seeing a better world means capturing more of the Earth in the highest resolution possible, to bring you a unique vantage point and provide information that gives you confidence when making critical decisions. It means building the Digital Globe, a record of change to our planet that spans 16 years and grows each day. See more with Worldview 4. See a better world.
Okay, so as I said earlier, Digital Globe, we have satellites, 5 of those. The last one you just saw there, that one went on in October. The resolution of that satellite is 30 centimeters, so pretty good accuracy. The satellites that we have, about 50% of that capacity goes to support the U.S. government customers. The other 50% goes to support international customers, international governments. A number of governments I see here purchase that imagery. We collect about 3 million square kilometers of imagery a day, so that's a lot. So if you think about every day, 6, 9. So it's a lot of imagery that's being collected. There's a lot of data, obviously, in that imagery, and that's the side of the Digital Globe I work with, is pulling out that information, that data out of those satellites and working with other data sources. As Tito said yesterday when he showed you his watch and talked about that, there's an explosion of geospatial data, right? So it's his watch at my house in Tampa, Florida. I recently installed some Wi-Fi cameras around my house, and literally, today I can pull out my phone and I can look at those pictures. I can see where my wife went shopping yesterday and get her on her about spending too much money. Yeah. So there's all kind of, so there's, you know, so with that, I can tell the weather, I can tell the temperature, and all that data is being collected. The air conditioner in my house can be hooked up now to the internet, and it can be monitored of how much energy I'm using, the temperature. I can set it from my phone again. But again, all that data is being collected, right? So if you have millions of households across the US and you can tell the temperature and you can tell how much energy is being used, pretty quickly you can start making some judgments about where power surges may be or where do you need to shift power to. So that's just a couple examples. As Cito said, his watch is a very good one. Millions and millions of people, hundreds of millions of people are collecting this data. So I will leave you with one thing I will say that I'll leave you with before I go to my demo. You need to get with the geospatial, geographical revolution. If you're not, I'm going to tell you you're going to be left behind, because that's what is really going to. All this data is being collected, it's being analyzed, it's being looked at. And I would also offer the younger generation, they're very attuned to all this data. They're good with using it, they know what it means, they know how to solve problems with it. So I'm going to show you an example now of an application we developed. So one thing, when we work with research companies, for the last 5 years I've been working with them, gathering data, producing analytic products from that. But one thing I started to notice was the data was getting just put on the shelf. They liked the information of the products we produced, but after 6 months or so, the data itself was just being put on the shelf. It really wasn't being used. Some of our customers I went and saw didn't understand the data. They just wanted us to tell them what it meant, and work with companies like ORB to say, this is what the data means. So we decided, hey, maybe there's a way to show the data that the client customers could use. So I'm going to show you an example of a program we developed called Expose that does that. I'm going to quickly go over it. I don't have a lot of time. I'll be here the rest of the day and some tomorrow morning. If you want a hands-on demo, if you want to sit down yourself and play with the data, we can do that. But what you're going to see is a pretty easy-to-use tool that allows you to look at the data, but I think more importantly allows your client to look at the data. And what we've noticed is when we use it, the client tends to come back and ask for more polling, more research based on being able to really understand the data that we're given them. Okay, so I'm going to go to the demo now. I'm probably going to need somebody to play this for me. Sorry. Yeah. I need someone to hold the mic. I can't. You want to? Okay, so the first one I'm going to show you here, if you can see it, you're looking at a poll that was done on West Africa. Oh, no. There you go. What you're looking at is a poll that was done by the American Red Cross in October of 2016 over West Africa, asking primarily Ebola questions. So what you're seeing here on the left is a geospatial representation of the actual poll that was conducted. You see there it says 4,516 records. And this is an interactive application. So as I move around on the map, you're going to see the charts on the right will change correspondingly to the geographic area that I'm showing. All right, so I'm just going to play with it a little bit so you can see that, and then I'll do a couple other things. So as you see, as I zoom in on certain areas, the graph is changing, right? So if I look at these other tabs, they will change as well, and they're all sort of linked together. So all these different variables are all linked. What you're seeing here is actual questions that we're asking the survey. So if you have a 400 question survey, theoretically we could have 400 questions loaded here that you could play with. The other thing is you can turn on the questions on and off as they relate to each other. We also have loaded digital globe imagery because it's easy and we have it. So it allows you to really search and look down on the ground at various places. Another thing that we've also loaded is the actual questions themselves, the actual survey questions. So you're able to look at those in case you're interested in it. And when you back out, you can see the survey here really went around the border of Guinea, Sierra Leone, looking at the Ebola crisis. So here I clicked on one of the questions and you see it pops up, so you can look at that in case you're curious about that or your customer was as well. So let me zoom in a little more. I'm going to go ahead and turn off the questions because it gets cluttered a little bit if you leave them all on. Okay, the other thing you can do is we have a number of geospatial layers that we can turn on. We generally have over 100, 200 for each country. These can be anything from police stations, schools, language, ethnicity, polling stations. It can really be anything that's available that you want. And I was going to quickly show you here. This here is population density. So if you're interested in that, you could turn it on. But the idea here is to show you that really any geospatial data layer you want, we can add and turn on if it's available to the user. So let me just zoom in here a little bit more. So as I said earlier, you can go in and just say you want to go in and look at this. If you see here, has the community been affected by fire in the country? So if I click yes, it'll show up. You see it linked together. And just say I want to also look at drought conditions, or has drought affected the country as well. I can click on that down here, and the results you're seeing are based on that. The other thing, just real quickly, if you look here at the bottom, you can see what files you have turned on, so you can understand what layers you're looking at. I'm going to quickly look at another example of this. This one's actually on Syria. And you see there was 4,223 surveys taken. In the same type of situation, I can turn on the digital globe imagery, and then I can start looking at the data. And let me just zoom in around Damascus. And so there you see the various charts. And again, these are all linked together, so you can take a look at them. So let's just say we want to look at demographics. And you see this is a pretty balanced poll, 50% female, 50% male. Just say I wanted to look at female respondents, so we can list that there. You see it on the map. A little bit of trouble here, but there you go. So you can see that on the map as well. Say you want to look at media tied to the female population. You can start seeing here, they really trust, you can select on the ones who trust Syrian television, so you can click on that. Just say you also want to get it trust a little to get as many of those as you can. And then you can start looking at the other variables that you have. Again, you can click back and forth between these various tabs and see the data as you want to, and you can drill in. Now, there will take some training, obviously, with this, with your clients to sort of make sure they understand how to use it, and also, the possible downfalls if they drill in too far and look at one or two surveys and try to make decisions off of one or two surveys. But again, the neat thing about this is we found is the customers really like it because they have hands-on with the data. They can play with the data. The other thing is it acts as a sort of a storage for your data. So we've done projects in Nigeria, for example. We did a survey in 2014, then we did one in 2016. So you can easily pull those up and bounce them off each other and sort of look at them real time to see the differences, and maybe there's changes in perceptions or changes in something that's going on the ground that's changed the polling, and you can sort of start making decisions based on that. We have worked with ORB on some of these in the last 6 months or so. Pretty favorable response from the customers, again, for them using the data. I understand most people in this room really understand the data, understand what it means and how to manipulate it, but we found, again, is our customers really like this to be able to dig into it. The other thing is this application is pretty much totally customizable, so it can be in different languages. You can maybe there's some questions you don't want to ask, you don't want to have on the application. We can take those off. It's really up to you. It's pretty easy to change. The other thing is it's extremely lightweight. Can work on a phone or a tablet pretty easily. Yesterday I was talking to a few folks, and one thing, yes, the surveys has to be geospatial enabled. You have to be able to collect the geospatial information when you're collecting the surveys to have this being useful. So I think I got Johnny. You've worked with this some. You have any thoughts or comments? Yeah. The main thing is it allows you to really play with the data and get in the data and really understand it. So again, I'll be around the next few days, today and tomorrow morning. If you have any questions or want to literally sit down and just mess with it yourself, please let me know. All right, thank you.
So our next speaker is Andrew Smith from Redroot. Redroot is an excellent company I've been working with. They're doing econometric modeling. Econometric modeling is a buzzword these days, I find out. Many companies are getting into this, relating much of the data that we are collecting with sales and finding what drives sales. So from various perspectives. So Andrew is a very experienced executive. He's worked for large companies such as Henkel, etc. I'm just trying to gain some time also because he's going to present to us via Skype, because he was about to travel here, but he realized his residence visa from Istanbul was not ready due to bureaucratic reasons that have to do with the refugee issue in Turkey. So the next best solution was for him to present to us via Skype. So we're ready to see Andrew, and then I'll hand it over to him. Good morning, Andrew. We can all see and hear you. Do you want to proceed with saying hello to everybody and with your presentation? We can all see you. You cannot see everybody, but we can see you.
Okay, thanks, Tidos. Thank you for the introduction. Good morning, everybody. I'm going to switch across to my my presentation. The technology is not being kind this morning, so when I switch across, you may lose a picture of me, but I will come back at the end of the presentation if you have any questions. So let me just switch across to the presentation. Can I just confirm that you've got the presentation now? Okay, let me kick off. Let me kick off then. I'm presenting Redroot International. My presentation is what type of business insights are CEOs really looking for. Just a brief background of myself. I started with my career with Mars in sales and brands management. Then moved to BAT as regional marketing director, on to BP as international marketing director and general manager for their consumer products business. Then as regional VP for Henkel in Middle East Africa, and then subsequently Turkey, Iran, Caucasia, and Central Asia. I then joined the Orléans Group, and I was Group VP for their majority-owned joint ventures with Coca-Cola, Nestlé, Mondelez, Kimberly-Clark, Colgate-Palmolive, and also their logistics and packaging joint ventures with DHL and Huhtamäki. What I wanted to share with you today was a situation that I had in Henkel, Turkey, with our flagship detergent brand, Persil. The brand had lost more than half of its market share over a 4-year period. That had resulted in advertising cuts and price promotions, which, as you can see from the peaks on the chart, completely out of control. We were going through a strategic review. I just joined the company, and what I wanted to know was the advertising ROIs at different points on the advertising response curve, the sales index to price by pack size, sales index by pack distribution, and also net effective brand preference. And obviously the reason for that is I wanted to be able to put together the most optimum brand plan. I contacted Steve Messenger, who's the managing director and owner of Redroot International, and Steve recommended the glide path solution for me. Now, what is glide path? Well, it's a strategic planning tool that enables you to forecast your profits and generate confidence behind your marketing investment. Redroot use data analytics and econometric modeling to identify and measure the drivers that affect your sales. And that's including both macro, marketing, operational, and one-off factors. They then quantify their relative importance, and that enables you to accurately predict your trajectory. The kind of data that GlidePath uses, both internal and external, obviously Nielsen sales pricing, distribution data for both modern and traditional sectors, both for our own brands and competitor brands. Weekly media spend and GRPs for TV and other key channels for Henkel brands and key competitors. The promotional calendar for the Henkel brands and also below the line promotional activities for our brands as well. Ad tracking data on campaign effectiveness for different media executions and ad awareness, and also market research data on the incremental sales from a new introduction of a fragrance line. In addition to that, financial data on product profitability, promotional costs, and media costs. So what we got out of GlidePath, the models are predictive. That enabled, most importantly for me, scenario planning. So I was able to play with the different levers, weigh them up, and then look at the effectiveness of those on both revenue as well as profitability. It also provided effectiveness tracking as well. The scenarios allow optimization, enabling both winning media and non-media plans to be developed, help me justify the marketing investment, and also provide a robust measurement of ROI on media. Bottom line, as you can see from the chart, Persil's market share doubled, and that was worth over 20 million per annum in sales revenue. Okay, if I can just come back to you now, I don't know if you can see me again now. Yeah. Yeah. Have you got me back now? I can cut off and then come back to you if you want to call me again, Titos. Is that easy? Okay.
So if there are any questions you want to pose to Andrew, he'll be more than happy to answer. Also, I can, because I've worked a little bit with these models, I can also help you later on. But Andrew is here for the case studies and how he's used it in Henkel. So if someone wants to ask something, more than happy. Yes, sir.
So how does the primary research fit in this whole econometrics modeling?
So
In
how
what
does,
way?
sorry, again?
how does the primary research fits into the modeling of whatever the modeling they are doing, and how do they go about integrating that data?
So, Andrew, the question is, how does the primary research fit into your model, and how do you go about integrating the data?
I have to be honest. I mean, I was at the client end, not at the operational end of this this study. Steve and the team at Redroot are going to be able to provide far greater insights into that, and I'm happy to get Steve to contact you to answer that question.
One of the parameters that they analyze is actually the data collected from advertising tracking, and especially as regards its impact on awareness and usership. But it's just one of the parameters that they analyze. They combine this with internal data, such as marketing activities, external data that has to do with the environment, inflation, for example, distribution data, even the Turkish lira equation to the euro or to the dollar. So everything goes into a model, and it might not be proved to be of such importance, but I think they analyze more than 150 variables in this, some of which come from research. The hard part, yeah, but this is our reality. This is the reality of the client. Some of them come from research. The hard part is making all this data actually clean into a single database that's on the same time scale, so weekly or monthly, etc. That's find the data, make sure it's correct, and put it in the correct database. But what I wanted to comment on this, and why I thought Andrew would be very important to be here with us today, is actually to show you that we are not the sole source of information for the client. That's one. They've got thousands of other sources of information, from pricing to not pricing studies, actual pricing, to sales, to advertising data, etc. So now they're beginning, the clients, they're beginning to put this all together in a single database. Whereas in the past, they used to have it, as different sources which they had to combine in their minds. Today, what they're doing is they're trying to find mathematical relationships between these different types of information. So, and understand what drives their sales. Okay? Yes, just. Yes. The lady, which is actually from Turkey as well, she says that we don't call them econometric models, we call them marketing mix models, because this is the kind of variables we use now. So, Andrew, thank you very, very much for your presentation.
Thank you, Tidos.
And goodbye.
Thanks very much. Take care and enjoy the day. Cheers.
So I called to the stand Mr. Vipin Moharir. He's a good friend and collaborator of us, who's come from the Netherlands. The purpose of him being here is actually very much related to my original speech yesterday. He's here to demonstrate from the software side how a software company actually creates now systems that are capable of collecting and controlling huge quantities of information. Thank you very much. And your clicker is here. Is it working?
I think I'll make use of this. So if my presentation comes up, yeah, good morning, everyone. Good morning. All right, so everybody's awake since yesterday. So my name is Vipin, and Vipin stands for very important person in Netherlands. Just kidding. Yeah. But so that you remember me. Yeah. So I'm a little confused because it's 9:40 and the session is still 10:15 and I was given 20 minutes. So do I have 40 minutes or do I have 20 minutes? But nevertheless, I'll just carry on if you have questions. So I'm happy actually that the thunder of my presentation has not been taken away by Mr. Dunmeyer, although he was very, very close. And Mr. Smith, of course, couldn't answer the last question, which I will from a technology perspective for him, and your question also, sir. So let me actually, without further ado, just give you a little bit of introduction in terms of what my presentation is all about. So the presentation is about smart marketing data, but it's not just about smart marketing data, it's about self-servicing environments that actually will take away certain jobs, certain work that traditional marketing research is doing. So that is very critical actually for, as a key pointers from my presentation. So who are we and what do we actually do? So we are a technology company, and primarily we work in 8 disruptive industries. Now, why do we work in disruptive industries? That is by design, that is by choice. So we have decided for ourselves that we will work in industries that are actually in disruption. That means in the next 10 years or so, they will fundamentally change the ways of working internally. So you can think about automotive, you can think about transport and logistics, you can think about healthcare, you can think about pharma companies, and so on and so forth. These industries are undergoing fundamental change. Just as an example, if 3D printers become extremely common, what do you think is going to happen to the transport and logistics industry? I mean, are we going to still ship goods from A to B, or will we just print? And there are many examples which I can share in a coffee break of our customers who are actually having fundamental shifts in their key value chain. And we support those key fundamental changes, and that's the reason that we are in disruption. Yeah. So we are actually at all these locations worldwide and so on and so forth, so I will just skip that. If you have questions, you can obviously come back to me in the break. Now, I mentioned disruption. So it's very critical to understand wherever there is disruption, and if you are a technology company, then you are dealing with digital transformation. And anybody who is actually dealing in digital transformation, it has to be in their DNA, because you have to start from data, you have to start from critical processes, you have to start from technology. So that's why the traditional industries are finding it so difficult to go through this disruption, because their major workforce is not digitally oriented. So they do not think digital, and that's where we actually come in. So for us, digital transformation is really in our DNA. Yeah. So what is it that we actually then do? Yeah. So just to give you an example, so we build apps, we build portals, we build all kinds of large enterprise applications that you see on the screen. It could be a knowledge engineering platform. Yesterday in one of the sessions, I was asked a question, how would you use marketing data? So we use marketing data, which is also geospatial. So I don't know where you are, Mr. Dunmeyer, but we use geospatial data, for example, in oil and gas, where we are projecting all kinds of things with respect to biodiesel, biofueling, and so on and so forth. And all of this data is collected, collated, and given to, I would say, users. And these are knowledge users, but also normal users in these platforms that you see. So this is actually what we do, or what the customer finally sees that we do. Now, what's happening in all of these that you see is they are predominantly data oriented, because I started with digital. So digital means data. And if you have large sums of data, then you are actually looking at what I call data as the new oil, or the new fuel, or whatever you want to call it. But predominantly what is happening around us, and I'm happy that Tito started his presentation yesterday with his watch, but you have all kinds of smart devices which you actually see. You have home automation, car automation, health automation, so much so that the new, let's say, Mercedes, which is getting launched at the end of this year, has even sensors in the seat which are actually monitoring your heart rate and so on and so forth. So they will know if you're driving at 180 kilometers and if your pulse is high and your BP is high, then they will know that there's something wrong. And what happens then is wait and watch. So what's happening in today's economy is, along with real research, you have all these data points which is coming up. Yeah. We are, as we see it, currently in the zettabyte stage of, let's say, internet. And anybody wants to guess how many zeros are there in a zettabyte? No one. All right. So it's a whole lot of data, and it's just enormous amount of data, which is being actually captured all around us, but also mainly from areas which were earlier unknown to us. So if we look now at the entire social exchange, and this just gives you what happens in 60 seconds in 2016. So if you look at 60 seconds in 2016, Amazon sold $200,000 worth of work. you had 500,000 photos which were shared actually on Snapchat. You had 2.4 million search queries on Google, and so on and so forth. Now, just as an example here, I want to give you, let's say, insight without naming the customer. I want to give you an insight in a question. So let's say that you had to do a survey on individual patients who were moving around in geography. So let's say somebody lives in San Francisco for 5 years, then goes to Chicago, then goes to Houston, and then moves to New York. And let's say all of this time they've been using one single medicine for whatever purposes. However, what's happening is during the course of these 5, 8, 10, 15 years, the demographics are changing, their environment is changing, they're moving from a sunny California to a snowy Chicago, and then they're moving to an intermediate climate. But maybe some other stuff is happening as well. So they have other ailments which are coming up. Now, which kind of survey do you think is needed to follow this patient and hundreds and thousands and millions of such patients? Can you think of the complexity? So then let me tell you, if you were to actually start socially listening to these patients, social listening to these patients, because these patients are on all kinds of communities. These patients are actually talking to other fellow patients in knowledge communities. You can have specific patient portals, specific patient communities where patients will know, because it's a lifestyle question now that I am sick, so I would like to monitor myself. So it's a predominant activity which is actually driven by my well-being. So we are using all of these, let's say, data gathering solutions to make sure that we actually get them collated. So what I call is welcome to the era, of data intelligence, and this is augmented data intelligence. And why? Because customer expectations are changing, and they're changing at the speed of thought. Very, very quickly, customers want new insight. I mean, we just saw a glide path. So traditional market research, I believe traditional market research, traditional underlying is getting obsolete. It's really getting obsolete because there is such a lot of data points which are available. I mean, I remember a couple of years back, Tito showed me a solution of surveying at the airports. Yeah? But if you have 1 million patients or 1 million consumers actually traveling with their devices, and they have said that, well, if you want to actually capture my movements, you can, because it's for my well-being, and that data is non-obtrusive data, then who needs a survey to figure out that someone came in, walked through the duty-free and went to the gate number so-and-so, because we know all of the data. We have spatial designs, we have beacon technology, we can actually find out the physical movements of people, either in a retail store or in physical locations. We have everything today available from a technology perspective to do all of that. So research, data acquisition, processing, and discovery is getting super automated. We are utilizing machine learning. Anybody knows what machine learning is here? Raise your hands. Okay, so very few people know machine learning. So if you see machine learning, what is humanly impossible today to do, recursive algorithms trying to figure out for themselves what the relationship of parameters are that are unrelated to each other, that can be done literally, I won't call it seconds, because some of these recursive algorithms, they take literally days to run, which we also run. So all of this is happening currently in the technology area, and that's the reason I say that traditional market research practices could go obsolete. Now, the next thing was also used in one of the presentations, predictive analytics. And later on in my presentation, I'll give you a very, very quick example of that. So if you look at predictive analytics, which is currently happening, is they are empowering the entire future of decision making, not for the knowledge users. Okay? So I found it interesting that Mr. Smith was asked a very critical question by you, and he was actually, I would say, unaware of the processing of the data. From his position, I can understand that he was unaware. So that's where I call a normal user. He is not, let's say, I wouldn't say concerned, but he's not aware of how the data has been processed to lead to that scenario, and he's unaware of how the decision making is actually being parameterized. So this is where I call that the knowledge users are actually moving into what I say normal users. So you don't need a crystal ball to predict your future anymore related to a specific business. All right. So how is it that we do this? So this is just a very quick example. Now this may sound, I wouldn't say sound Greek to some of you. But this may sound a little high-techy for some of you. So I hope this pointer actually is working. All right, so I'm going to stand on the side and give you a quick explanation. So what is it that we do? And this is a financial related model. So what we're doing is we have multiple disparate systems on the left-hand side. It could be accounting, it could be point of sale, it could be geospatial data, it could be inventory, it could be legacy applications, it could be your survey data, it could literally be anything. So we bring all of that data and we bring it into this platform, where this platform is being called CryoFin engine. And this CryoFin engine is actually running to make sure that all of this data, whether it is related or unrelated, is processed to make sure that it is being validated and correlated. Now, this correlation is not entirely, I would say, machine intelligence, and there is a reason for that, because we found that there are areas of data that we need which are also manual, which are human, let's say, related. So where is that data? There is a team which is spy web team. So this team is mainly tasked with getting competitor data. Okay, so I'll give you an example. We have teams in the automotive that are consistently and continuously looking at competitive data with respect to automotive parts, specific parts. So let's say brake parts. So some of you may find it very interesting to know that the price of the brake parts in the e-commerce area in internet changes almost every 10 minutes. It could be even 5 minutes. So if you are a supplier of brake parts and you are in the e-commerce area, then you really need to know all across, let's say, a specific geography, what the pricing strategy is of your competitors, without which you will not be actually effectively able to change your strategy. Pricing strategy. So this is that spy web. Then you have the CryoFin team that is consistently working to parameterize this engine. Along with that, you have the business owners, so customer, basically, the knowledge users from the customer side, who are working on the business rules that are required to make sure that this data is becoming sensible. Now, mind you, the top part could be a one-time activity or once per quarter activity or once per half a year activity. But these two activities which are happening on the bottom side over here, they are continuous activities. Then you get related data and validated data, and this gets on to a strategic, I would say, visual portal or visual interface for the customers. And the critical thing is, now this is data which is beyond your ERP, because your standard ERP can never give you this data. If you ask your ERP, so if you ask your standard ERP, yeah, in terms of how is it that I need to change my pricing strategies, it can never tell you that. If you ask your ERP what would be the price point at which my margins would be 10% more, it will not be able to do that. So you have your simulation capacity, you have your capacity to do predictive modeling, and you have your competition or competitor analysis, all of them into one portal. Now, another example of that is a collaborative data intelligence framework, which is pretty much similar to the example that I gave, but this is actually the answer also to the question that you asked, sir, to Mr. Smith. So what's happening is we have all the data acquisition sources, including the research data. We have a huge data processing and management engine, which is actually doing the entire data, let's say, steps, right from data preparation, cleansing, integration, evaluation, transforming the data, and then getting it into a model which makes sense. So this is parameterization, this is all kinds of econometric analysis, and so on and so forth. From there, we have cross-platforming of the data. So this data is actually being, let's say, captured from sources and being brought into cloud, because there is, storage capacity issue. And once this data is ready, we overlay digital marketing practices. Okay, so I need to take 10 seconds or 20 seconds over here to explain what I mean. Let's look at a holistic scenario. So I'll take Mr. Smith's example, which was 5 minutes back. So he took all that survey data. He actually brought the data into some form of an econometric model. Then thereafter, that model gave them simulation capacity. And from there onwards, the model stopped, because the actioning on that data was done by a separate team, right? You need to go out there, you need to have your marketing, you need to have your, let's say, price point strategies. So somebody took that data and that research and then put it into implementation. We go beyond that. So what we do is we are actually putting up an entire digital marketing platform on top of the process data. Okay, so I'll give you an example of this in a minute. I just want you to understand, if you knew, let's say you want to increase 10% on that airport example. You want to increase 10% of your yield in duty free, and you know 100,000 actually people are completely missing that particular kiosk, right? You know that. What would you then do? You can do simulation sitting behind your computer, that's okay. But once you actually want to take that action and push that, let's say, a special deal onto the watches or the phones with the beacon technology, onto the mobile phones or the people who are passing through that kiosk, that can be done in real time, completely real time, with dynamic content. Yeah. Anybody seen movie Minority Report? No one?
Yes.
Okay, so this is Minority Report. We're talking about literally Minority Report. When you're passing in front of the kiosk, we are able to see with facial recognition, is it a man or a woman? We are able to see, is it blonde? Is it dark haired? We can see all of that. So when somebody is coming in front of those kiosks, the content that you get basically visible is completely dependent upon the DMP practices that you actually see there. So digital marketing. So what have we done now? We took the data, we analyzed it, we processed it, and now we know if these are the parameters we would like to have digital marketing done in that fashion. Okay. So why is this being used? It's obviously being used for sales and support, so new business, new customers. It is being used for current customers, for retention, because how nice would it be if I would walk actually into Tommy Hilfiger and they would know, hey Vipin, you bought this and this last time, and this is not just Tommy Hilfiger in the Netherlands, but it could be any Tommy Hilfiger for that matter, because all this data is holistic. Yeah? So we're using it for new customers, we're using it for, I would say, retention of the customers and so on and so forth. And all of this is being given to the customer through a data analytics and an intelligent dashboard where the user is able to modify the parameters. So let me give you a customer case. Anybody from Norway over here? You missed out Norway? Yeah, I spoke to some people from Finland yesterday. So you may be able to recognize this. This is one of the largest automotive, let's say, companies in Scandinavia. So what you see over here is that there is the result of all that we do. There is a very fancy, let's say, portal. It could be a tablet, it could be a mobile phone, and we call it Unified Customer Intelligence. Okay. So what is this Unified Customer Intelligence doing? It is actually looking at all kinds of data. So I'm not repeating because this sheet would get completely cluttered if I were to mention all data points. So you're looking at call to action, you're looking at customer profiling. So we call that 360 degrees customer profile. I love the example yesterday in your session of Product Mart. You asked us to, change your viewpoint. So this is exactly the example of a 360 degrees customer viewpoint. So this automotive company wants to know me from a 360 degrees perspective, for retaining me as a customer, for cross-selling, for upselling, and so on and so forth. Yeah. So what's happening over here is that we have communication tools, we have data analytics, we have customer profiling, we have call to action from the digital marketing practices, and we have a wide array of connected data resources which are real-time and online. Okay, so they're real-time and online. Now, remember I started my presentation with ubiquitous data devices. So my car is a huge data generation engine, right? So if my car is sick, then my car is telling me I'm sick. But if I'm sick, I tell the doctor, right? So what's the use of the car telling me that I'm sick by putting that red dashboard lamp? But we're talking about an example over here that the car is sick and the car is telling the garage that, hey, I'm sick and I'm coming in for a checkup, right? So if the car is sick and it's coming in, all of this is getting collated by actually combining all of this into unified market intelligence and finally getting into the customer intelligence. So what do you see actually, and this is a simplified example that I wanted to take, but it demonstrates what we can actually do. So we are able to, with all of this data, we are able to predict up to 97% what the revenue of a garage workshop will be, let's say in October 2017. So we can tell them 97% accuracy, what would be your revenue in October 2017, which is 6 months ahead, okay? It doesn't stop there. Then we tell them the mix of the customers coming to you will be 40% BMW, 28% Opel, 30% Mercedes, and so on and so forth. It doesn't stop there. We go into that 28% of Mercedes, and in that 28% Mercedes, we tell them about 80% of those are going to require brake parts. They are going to require this and this service. And we go on and tell them that, remember, this is a car with a minor, let's say, damage. So you need not put your most expensive mechanics on this. Because if you put most expensive mechanics, you will never make a margin on that repair. Okay? So now try and visualize. I gave you a holistic process. Now try and visualize what's happening over here. We know the market. We know how many people live in that particular geography. We know how many of those are likely to come and visit that garage, because retention and new customers. We know how many won't, so we know what our digital marketing has to be targeted to for new customers and for retention. We go beyond that, we look at their cars, we analyze the cars, the vehicles, we get to the parts, we do allocations of manpower. Finally, the goal is to increase the margins for this customer on the repairs and on the maintenance and so on and so forth they do. So this is a completely 360 degrees customer, but also market, but also the company intelligence platform. And this predicts conversions, but it also recommends actions. So it may sound very crude, but there is a section of customers which will never come to our customer. So the end client. So we will say, well, you know what, it's fine. You will never go beyond 68% market share. You have 68% market share in that area, because that 1% extra is going to cost you such a lot of marketing money that it's not worth it. So we're able to do those simulations as well, and that's the very interesting part of this. So now I come to the critical question, actually, is if all of this is now self-servicing, because these are all portals that you see, and the normal users are using all of this. So we also use geospatial, we also use a lot of mapping, we also use a lot of technologies which are actually, that look very, very nice on screen for normal users, very interactive, very user-intuitive technologies. So one question that actually lingers in my mind is, earlier we used to work for knowledge users. But as technology is improving, we've started working more and more for normal users, because normal users do not want to know how technology works. They just want to be users of the technology. So if that is the case, in summary, I think data generation is a part of our life. So this is not a question anymore whether the data is going to be collected, augmented, and so on and so forth. That's a given. The other interesting thing is that there is a new breed of knowledge-oriented users who actually want to do their jobs on the basis of available data, on the basis of available research, and on processed information. The third thing is that the traditional role of marketing and digital agencies and also research agencies will change, if it has not. And the ones who don't change, I think, will become obsolete. There is no doubt in my question. I saw, interestingly, in Mr. Smith's, no, it was Mr. Dunmeyer, I think you're using SPSS. I don't know where he is, but I could see that. I think you were using SPSS on the screen. Yeah, so you'll see a lot of that stuff is becoming digital as well. I mean, SPSS 5 years back and today is a completely new ballgame. Yeah. So that is actually completely changing the traditional role. Next is smart marketing data. I think will completely revolutionize. It is already changing the way we look at data. And I think marketing practices, so CMOs of the future, or even CSOs, Chief Sales Officers of the future, I doubt whether they will be able to function in their capacity without understanding what the role of this kind of technology is in their daily functions. So data transformation and visualization, what you saw here is, I think, just tip of the iceberg, what I'm presenting, because there is so much out there in terms of technology and visualization. I think one has to just start, kind of finding it and researching it. So this is actually changing the entire world. So what does it mean for you is a question that I think all of you need to visualize and answer for yourselves in terms of what the impact of this technology, these kind of solutions is going to be for your roles. Now the good news is, when we as a technology company execute these kind of projects, we always partner with research agencies. So there is a new role over there. Why? Because we fundamentally are from technology industry, and we do not understand how to process data, how to correlate it, how to capture data. So we actually rely on partners from marketing research, we rely on partners from data sciences, we rely on partners who actually bring that expertise for us into the projects. Yeah? So that's the good news that I would say. And thank you very much for listening. If you have questions, I'm available till lunch, after which I'll proceed back to Holland. Thank you very much.
So, thank you very, very much, Vipin, for really scaring us all. It's at the same, it's weird. It's at the same time, it's very exciting and very depressing what you're doing. What I want to remark here is we met, 2 years ago, approximately. The and Alternative is indeed a very much, progressive and technology-oriented company. The progress that was done by Gateway in their way of thinking in the past 2 years, because I haven't seen this presentation for almost a year now, the progress is double that of our thinking as researchers. And I think the reason is very, very easy to identify, is because these guys are doing work for clients, which is helping them break through new ground. So a client would dream of, can I know at the same time what the seats of my car are saying to the client and how quickly he's driving, and correlate this to, so the client is thinking of a problem and these guys are out to solve it. But this is not so much part of our everyday life. We don't do breakthrough projects on a daily basis in our business. So that's why these guys are growing much, much quicker in their way of thinking in marketing than we are. And I think this is also something that we need to think about. Please take any questions.
Yeah, I mean, if you have any questions, then I'm available. I think either everybody is overwhelmed or... Sure, please go on. Yeah.
Talk about, so I'm talking about a particular slide, which is, I think, going across is the 12 month, is that what they're?
Yeah, I mean, that's just a visualization. So
It's
in
not
fact,
the real.
No, that's a real case. But normally, when we would, if you were to see the real application, then you would actually see that we also do comparisons. So we would actually do comparisons. If you want to know which customer will come in October 2017, then you also need to know when did that customer come back in the past. So what is the normal maintenance cycle of the vehicle, and so on and so forth. So we do simulation and comparison, and there are various screens, in the application for that.
No, that's fine. The only question I have, if it's just an example, is fine. It's a dramatic example of switching from 90%, let's say, sole, or what do you call, the company shops versus independent shop, shifting dramatically requires certain action, marketing mix.
No, that's
in order
not-
to shift.
no,
Is
that's
it-
not
if it's
entirely-
Just an example,
Yeah.
just an example is a different story. On the other hand, if it is something that you have done, and obviously there's some input has gone into, I just want to.
No, I think I understand your question, and I also understand the let's say the confusion. In that particular slide, what you will see is car maintenance is predictive, but at the same time also sometimes very repetitive with a lot of peaks. Okay, so for example, for the ones who are in Scandinavia, you will see that you will go to your car shop, let's say in March, for your summer tires. Okay, so you can imagine in a country like the Netherlands, one of our customers who actually does that, they do 300,000 tire changes in 180 shops in 2 weeks flat, 24-hour cycles. So what you see there is you see peak cycles over there, which actually would completely, change your look, from your statistical look towards your car maintenance and the residual effect of that. So that could be because of, that effect in a specific month. But the example that you saw is a real example in the slide. You had a question.
I answered partly. Also, I congratulate you. It's really exciting what's happening. But technology is behind us, I think, because our imagination is far from the technology. Today we are having internet cuts, and all other technology problems. But this system is excellent if it works well, and the baseline infrastructure works also. As I said, we have many times internet cut in many places. We cannot reach internet, and it is all bound with the internet. And it is an excellent machine. Once, many years ago, NIPO tried to do something like research machine, they said, they called. And now, this is the excellent way of changing ourselves. Because with this technology, we have to do this.
Yeah, I think you are completely right. Most of the technology was, I think, has been available for quite some time now. But why it is becoming, let's say, so important, and why is it getting used now, is because the computing power is now available.
Yes.
You have the cloud computing power which is available. So you are able to correlate, you are able to figure out, and you are able to actually deploy that technology much, much more effectively. But you are right, without network connectivity, there would be problems. So that is a critical must. But the whole Internet of Things is actually what we are, racing against now. If you see the number of devices, one of the research actually papers published recently is that we should have something like 50 billion devices connected to each other in the next 3 years. So by 2020, 50 billion devices will be connected. I mean, that's crazy, isn't it? It's
Another fact that I think is really interesting for us is I read somewhere that every 2 days, humanity produces as much information as in all its history up until 2015. So 99.9% actually of the information that humanity has produced is just like 2 years old. So think about that.
Yeah, that's correct, and that's absolutely correct. Yeah. Yes, please.
On the beginning of the phases, there's a part where you and your team gathers the social data and analyze it and structure it. In how many languages can you do this?
Okay, so very good question, first of all. So number one is that data is not being analyzed, especially the data from internet, which is from social listening, is not being analyzed by human beings. It is completely machine oriented. Now, where have we learned all of this? We've been working for the last 20 years for the top 5 publishers globally. So these publishers have also, again, disruption. So these publishers are disrupting their traditional models, and these traditional models are going digital. So if you want to have science information available to you today, you can read a journal, but that'll take you literally hours and hours and hours. And after that, after reading that journal, you will still need to apply basically whatever you have read to your practical problem. Okay. So since I have 5 minutes, I'll give you a very quick example, and that will kind of open your mind. So let's say that you are an engineer working for a large engineering firm, okay, and you are designing an oil platform and somewhere oil rig, okay, and you want to know that specific part that you're putting into that oil rig, if that part is made of let's say composite rather than actually metal, carbon fiber, carbon graphite, what will happen to your platform? So now this is a very interesting, let's say, question that the engineer has. Hey, I'm putting this part. What will happen actually if I put carbon graphite? It won't rust and so on and so forth. That's very common, let's say, knowledge. But will it be able to sustain the pressure? Will it be able to sustain all of those parameters? What do you think the engineer did 10 years back? They would go back to the drawing table. They would look at all the material, let's say, qualities. They would look at 2 materials, iron, this, that. They will start comparing them and so on and so forth. Today, what they do is they have our application on the site, and while they're working, they drag and drop composite onto that let's say part, and our application translates all of the research of all researchers onto basically that particular design, and it tells them, listen, this and this and this and this and this is going to happen. Okay, so this is all research in all languages being analyzed. So this book is analyzed. We create a fingerprint of this book. When we come across a similar fingerprint somewhere else, we combine and correlate millions of such fingerprints, and we derive all the information out of that and then present it in a usable form. So on the internet question that you asked, we have robots which are going everywhere. in all languages. They're getting crawlers, yeah, bots nowadays, so they get all the information back. This information is converted into fingerprints. These fingerprints have to be understandable, so that's why you need taxonomies to understand the information and correlate it. And after that, you actually combine fingerprints and get the data out. This is a simplistic answer to, but I'm happy to explain, whoever is technologically oriented, I'm happy to explain that in detail. So thank you very much for having me. Oh, sorry.
No, just hello, my name is Michael from Austria. I really liked your presentation, but I think there's one important point. You're working in disruptive industries. I think you need clients to be able to buy such things.
Of course.
Because for example, you might say Austria is a small market and a quite conservative market in terms of marketing technology and all that kind of stuff. And we're doing, not similar, but we're doing things like that. For example, we have a client who is running 35 shopping malls across Central Europe. So they have a lot of data with beacon technology, and also we do survey with them. It took us 2 years to convince them to buy a dashboard solution where they can see online and compare all their shopping malls instead of having piles of paper, which they did before, yeah, and basically it cost them double the money, yeah? I mean, because this might cost a lot of money. So this is not, please don't take that as a critic.
No, very, very good.
The problem is, if you would give this presentation to an average client, they would be threatened, like maybe some of us, like here in the room, yeah? So it really, this is some, I like it a lot, but it's something which is very hard to sell from my point of view. I mean,
no, so I will, you're right and wrong at the same time, okay? So I'll tell you method of selling this, okay? So first I started my presentation with 8 disruptive industries, and that is by design. We like to do this kind of stuff, so we choose the industries in which we want to work, and we choose the customers for which we want to work. So that's number 1. Number 2 is we believe in what we do. So we believe, and then the number 3 is how do you sell it? So let's say you're a customer in Austria. By the way, we have a very fantastic customer in Austria, so I'll tell you all about it in the coffee break, who uses this kind of system. They are in the telecom industry. So we would go to a customer and say, this is what we can do for you. There are 2 ways for us to actually get a chance to do this for you. One is you pay the project price. So this is the project and you pay the price. And 2 is that we take 10% or 20% of the profits and the improvement from the baseline from the day that we come for 1 or 2 or 3 years. Okay? So now try and imagine that I'm going to one of the largest automotive companies in Scandinavia, and I tell them, we will do this project for you. We will increase the baseline margin by 10% across the company. Okay? And we want to take 20% of that 10% on top of the baseline. So if you run the numbers, yeah, then it's a no-brainer. So in fact, with this customer, we tried and we sold it on the basis of percentage. They came back and they said, no, let's go for a project price. Okay, so this is it's how much do you believe that this solution is actually going to give value to your customer?
I think it's also something else. Right away, I think it's also something else is that he deals with customers who have identified on a primary level the need for this improvement. If you try to sell this to someone who has not even thought about it, it's a mission impossible. But because you need to cultivate it for 2 years then. But I think that I think you don't waste your time with clients that have not identified the need on a primary level. There are a lot of, and they're becoming more and more the clients that are younger in age. They want to bring change to the company they're getting into, and therefore you can start with these guys. Yes. So Emilia is saying that we're talking to marketing people and Vipin is talking to managing directors and IT people and commercial. So there was a question by the gentleman in the back.
My question, my name is Joe. I come from Nigeria in Africa. I find the presentation very interesting and instructive. I'm just wondering, there's an issue you raised about collecting data, devices, new devices now to collect data. Will it be in the form of watches or tag, or what form will it be? My reason for asking that is that the population we are surveying in Africa, are you going to give these devices free of charge, or how are you going to get them?
I think it's a very it's a kind of a question that I may not be able to answer offhand because we are not into hardware or devices or whatever. But I think it's safe to say for the next foreseeable future, we will see multitude of various devices. So I do not see that getting homogenized. So that's answer number one. Answer number two is these devices, mind you, can collect only a specific part of the data. So Tito's watch can collect only a specific part of let's say that particular data. But what Tito's watch cannot do, which it will learn to do, is if his blood pressure rises, then he will be able to, or the watch will be able to call the doctor directly. So that's the next part of actioning that you saw actually on some of my slides, where direct actioning on part of the on the basis of data is being taken ahead. And the third question that you asked very interestingly is whether this will become free. Yeah? And if I were to actually look into the crystal ball, I do believe that at certain point in time it will become free. But that freedom will come, or that no price will come at a very high price of privacy, and because the data is the new oil. So in fact, the currency that the company who is going to give you this watch, yeah, is going to be your personal data, right? And we are already working in those projects. So once again, I can talk about this for literally a day. But we are working currently on a project where we are looking at usage and a user-based insurance. Okay, so somebody driving a car, and that itself is extremely complex. Just to again give you an example, let's say this is point A and point B, and you're driving between point A and point B in the morning when it's bright and sunny, and you're driving at 100 kilometers an hour where the speed limit is 80. You may not be a bad driver still, because you may be speeding, but not a bad driver, right? But if it is A and B, and you're driving in the evening and night, and it is extremely snowy, okay, and the visibility is less, and you're still driving at 100 kilometers an hour, then you're really a bad driver, right? So just look at the data points. We have speed, we have weather, we have all kinds of history, parameters, we have the inputs from the car, which is giving us, we can actually see your blood pressure. So we know that if you are driving in the evening at that particular speed and it's snowing and your BP is at 180, then there is a problem and something needs to be done. And the question is, who will do it? Thank you very much. Titos, Amelia, thank you very much for having me.
So thank you very much, Vipin. Let's not ask any more questions here because it's becoming worse for us. Let's go for the coffee break. We'll be back in 15 minutes. Thank you very much.
So, ladies and gentlemen, hello, how's it going? All right. So, we were talking about big data and all the possibilities that digitalization gives us to the market, predictive analytics. And my prediction for today is 50% probability that we will stick to the schedule for today. So, let's see if that happens. I'm pretty sure, though, that we will have lunch today, that we will make that. And as we have seen a lot of challenges and opportunities on the one hand side, on the other hand, we have a lot of responsibilities also as marketing researchers and pollsters to deal with all the data that we have. And I'm more than happy to have Fritz Spangenberg with us today. And he will give us a presentation on the revised ESOMAR Codex, which absolutely deals with the things, how do we deal as marketing researchers with the data and the possibilities we have. And thank you, Fritz, for stepping in for Peter Paul, who couldn't make it for today, but I think he is as competent and as good as Peter, so thank you very much, and your stage.
Okay, dear friends, just before we all become obsolete, let's try and work on collaboration. I love the theme of this conference. Of course, collaboration just doesn't come by itself. You need some keys to come to the foundation of collaboration. And one of the keys is, of course, getting together. Dancing, the sirtaki. That is kind of collaboration, but it's not enough. We also need trust, a very old-fashioned concept, but without trust, there's no collaboration, and there are no beautiful ideas, and there's no progress. And of course, we don't deny technology. I got a bit dizzy this morning, where we are going, and of course, the future is, and I think it's very important to see what it's going to be. But going back to collaboration, and we heard this theme also from Nikos Vetas. He said technology, trade, and peace. Trust and peace and stability are extremely important to make progress, also in our trade. But then came Titos Simitsis with his bloody watch, and then it all started. Data for free. And of course, we all know that the world is changing, and so is ESOMAR. And I'll take you through some of the code and the regulations. Why is it so important to pay attention to the regulations and to the code? It is self-regulation or to be regulated. And I think ESOMAR very smartly, for over the decades, changed the code to the society, to what the society, the clients and the members needed to stay up to date. And of course, with regulations, you always run the risk that you are back and retarded to the actual state. But I think ESOMAR and the disciplining committee comes together and did a very good job in keeping up to date and showing how the world is changing. As you see, since 1948, it already got started. And I can't stress enough, it's self-regulation or be regulated. And we try to stay as much away from the being regulated. Can they make beautiful slides at ESOMAR? I think ESOMAR can still make slides that you can read and you can see everything that's on it. And that's something of our industry I think we have to keep in mind. I see too many slides with too much information, and I think it's a kind of sickness and disease in our industry that we're almost drowning in information, and the slides are an example. So bravo ESOMAR for what you did. What's happening? Oh, okay. Chiara is helping me. I go the wrong way. Okay, now okay, the other button. Okay, alongside with the International Chamber of Commerce, that's a partner that I think we are very proud of. There are many trade organizations. ISOMAR has this collaboration with the International Chamber of Commerce. So that is a very strong partner. And it's not only a set of rules, it's also the enforcement. If you don't enforce the rules are just about nothing. And ISOMAR is very strong and we have to keep and stick to those rules. It is a powerful passport for us, and it gives this confidence and trust. That's what we needed. A moment of rest and build trust for the general public and of course our clients. Has served well, but because the industry is transforming, so are the rules. Of course, we have this big data development. An estimation by 2020, 5 trillion. How many zeros are there in a trillion? Too many, exactly, too many. You know what is so interesting? I looked up and said, yeah, if you're presenting, you have to know how many zeros are there in a trillion. But the trillion in Dutch has never been properly translated to the trillion in English language. We have, in the Dutch language, we have 26 zeros in a trillion. Anyway, it's a lot. It's far too much. So it just makes you dizzy, and it's not what we're here for. Anyway, there's a tremendous growth, and there are new entrants. We had some examples today, new entrants in our industry. And we also, as ISOMAR, want to capture the new entrants, because we don't want to become obsolete. We want to be able to change, all of us, step by step. And this is what they say, there has never been a better time to be in business. But also, I must admit, it's also a bit scary. Where are we going to, and how can we stay, you know, healthy and sound? And I can tell you, I heard often that our ways of working would become obsolete. The motivation, why do people make specific choices, cannot yet be recorded by technical devices. It is still a matter of looking the others in the eye and understanding and have this questioning. So a lot of our work, I think, stays very much upright. Also qualitative research will be still a very important part of our business. That's what I strongly believe. Anyway, we have also to master the data revolution. It's coming faster, and all these ingredients have to be taken into account in our rules and setting. New techniques set us right in the front of what's happening, and of course new ethical challenges, and that's what the new rules are about. All for public trust and confidence. That's the reason why. Now, what is one of the major changes is the increase of passive techniques, of course, without asking questions. So the whole concept of an individual or a respondent, that's disappearing. So we will talk about other concepts. This diversification of data sources, of course, many more sources we've seen, and we all know it, and it increased the ability of current and new actors to work in the same rules. So new entrants must be able to become part of our industry. This is then the new code, and I tell you some of the new items that is taken into it. We keep in mind it has to guide researchers to meet obligations for data subjects. We don't talk about respondents anymore, but data subjects. We are all, as we are here, data subjects, because all these information streams go around us. So when you see the phrase data subjects, you think what we used to think of as respondents and individuals. So the data subjects, clients, the public, and the profession. That's what we have to keep in mind. 3 fundamental principles, and I think they are very logical. We have to be transparent, we have a duty of care, and our ethical behavior should not harm the data subjects. I think that's a very logical thing. And it's more in the detailing that we give more rules. So this, and we have more details about data analytics, data subjects, all other data sources. And I must tell you, when you look at the presentation, when you are at home, I skipped about 10 of the slides because they were a bit more about secondary data and more on details. But so if you want to get into the details, look at the presentation later. We have an expanded definition of the data analytics. we want these new entrants, and we protect data subjects. That's extremely important. We have to keep protecting the individuals, or the what's the new phrase? Data subjects. Yes, we have to protect them. It's in their interest that we don't become obsolete, as some will say. Vulnerable individuals also slightly changed. A child defined as 12. I think then hardly anything is allowed to do with them if their parents are not with us. And a young person, 13 to 17 years, then there must be consent to interview them or to have them in our studies as vulnerable individuals. The new consumer code, we distinguish data collected directly by the researcher, like we all did, and other data sources, because these combinations are very exciting, and that's of course in the future. We want to have more flexibility to recontact a data subject, but only with their consent. And in some countries, the rules can be even more severe, that it's not always allowed, but ISMAR is saying this can be done, but with consent. And the new code allows for passive data collection without consent, but it outlines key legal principles that must be met lawfully, collect and use. So the more combinations you make, the more complex choices you must make sure that it's all legally acceptable. So there are some rules about when you do a survey or interviews, you must strict your questions to the purpose. So don't just ask things you are very interested in on a personal level. No, do the study and have your limitations. You share your outcome only with consent of the data subject. Public privacy, of course, is a very important issue. Public privacy, on one hand, people feel very free and send pictures of their nude self on the web. That's one hand. On the other hand, there are very strict regulations of what can be done and not done on sharing of data. And of course, we have to stay on the formal side and know exactly how far we can go, and this becomes more complicated. No deductive disclosure. Of course, we have to emphasize security. Time-limited retention. You can't keep things forever. All this is to certain levels and standards. An equivalent level of protection when using subcontractors. If you use subcontractors, but that's the same now, you stay responsible in the whole chain of responsibility. We protect the clients. Researchers must be transparent in the design and execution of projects. I think we do that now also, but many of these rules are put here explicitly because of the new entrants, because there are new companies with completely new approaches who have hardly a clue of the tradition like we had. So if and we want those new entrants, otherwise if you're not able to integrate them in our industry, we really become obsolete. So we want to integrate them, and for that reason we have made explicitly what can be done and not done. Of course, the public concern, validity, impartiality, the public opinion subject is, of course, sometimes harming the trust in our industry, and we should really, we pay attention to it, but we must be very clear, more clearly to the outside world, I think, what the possibilities of voting studies are, and how far we can, and it's not really a predictive model. Anyway, we have to strengthen the disclosure of those requirements as well. Our professional duty, I think we all know it: honest, truthful, ethical, legally compliant and accountable. Nothing new for us, but for the new entrants, absolutely very important. The key takeaways: it reinforces our key fundamental promises: no harm, transparent and effective data stewardship. Code has been modernized to enable researchers to use new data-intensive research techniques, so the world is open to integrate all that. And the code has clarified responsibilities to our stakeholders, from data subjects, general public and clients. And the code allows for changes in purpose so long as the distinction is maintained and clearly identified. So just be clear what you do and take care of what we do. And I think most of these issues are very logic and in in the feeling, the way we are already operating. So, what's happening now? The code is adopted by International Chamber of Commerce and the ECMR members. We had a referendum on that. Into force, it comes in January 17. That's a couple of months ago already. We want to have it adopted by our national partners. It is worldwide already adopted and endorsed by a wide majority, but it should be common understanding and common agreement. And as from January 2018, complaints and queries can be submitted to ECMR, and they will be judged. So, of course, I told you, it's not only the regulations, but also the enforcement that is extremely important to be strong and to show that we are an industry that knows where to go and where not to go. And there are always cowboys trying to come into our industry, and they may try, but we won't, if possible, not accept that, and because we have this very strong code. 30 associations have adopted the new code, and other 3 have endorsed, and we're going on in that way. And we keep you up to date, and we stay in touch. Finn Raben is there, and if you have any questions on the code, please feel free to do so. Thank you very much.
You have a question?
Yeah. Titos, you have a question?
I have a question.
So I hope it's not too difficult.
I don't know. So no, I understand, and I think it's fantastic that the code has been updated to include all these new stuff that's happening. And I understand that a big part of this code concerns data collection companies such as Google or Facebook, etc. But in fact, these companies will ask you to agree on a 27-page statement, which you have to do over your mobile phone. And if you don't agree, that's fine. Just don't use Google in your life, no problem. Don't use Facebook, no problem. Whereas for us, we don't give anything to respondents. We just kindly ask their opinion, and then actually all the responsibility for the agreement comes back to us.
Yeah, I know it's theory and practice. Also, what we ask for a client and our standards of delivery are often denied by clients. That is, we set the standards, we present you this contract. And of course, the strongest party will eventually win. But if you don't have your set of regulations yourself, you're much weaker. So with our code, we are much stronger, at least to negotiate on with other partners and other clients. So I agree, theory and practice are wide apart. That is life. That makes life also rather complex. And personally, I think with this modified code, nobody can tell, not Google or none of our clients, oh, but you have an outdated code, we can't work with it. So in the end, it makes it stronger, but still I know theory and practice may make things more complicated. And at least we have a basis where not to go, to stay ethical and to protect our industry and clients and data subjects.
Okay, thank you. We have time for 2 more questions. Yes, please.
Marita. I have it on the slide, but I skipped it to gain time. So, but you can see it immediately, and I think Finn knows by heart who endorsed, and you can ask him later. We have the list.
Then one question: did APOR endorse it or adopted it, or
Did APOR? I think we're looking for national organizations. Did APOR endorse it? APOR has endorsed, so you can sleep quietly. Yeah. One more question. Well, Um, I know this is an issue that is coming up ever since. I can tell you what the Dutch agencies in the Netherlands took as a very practical solution. When there is agreement to a certain project, we charge 2/3 of the whole amount. This is in the proposition. So when I have a proposition to a client, and at agreement, an invoice of 2/3 of the whole budget can be sent. If it doesn't come, this payment, you can warn the client, excuse me, the payment has not come. So we never deliver the end results if not at least 2/3 has been paid. I mean, this is very practical, and it has been accepted through the whole industry in the Netherlands. But I think for ESMR it will be very difficult to start dealing with different countries and different rules and setups. So this is very much a national thing. I remember when it was not the case, and we had exactly what you had. Some clients just, well, delay, because delayment of payment is money you win. I mean, it's a very easy thing. I love the idea, but it's not allowed. It's not allowed by EU financial authority to make lists of people that are delayed in payment. It's just not allowed because of privacy regulations. So I love the idea to informally you can do it, but even that is not, forbidden. But of course, informally you can do forbidden things. So you can do it with your colleagues, but it's certainly not allowed for a formal institution like your trade organization or ESMR to make such a list. But you cannot ask it in the open. You can do it during lunchtime, because financial authorities, you really be fined if you do that. So we skip this subject and maybe during lunchtime if you want.
Thank you very much. Thanks, Fritz, for giving us this presentation. And when reading the codex again, you probably did that already, but when you read it again, you may have some more questions, and I know that Finn is always happy to answer those, and Fritz also. Maybe you would like to know what, apart from a respondent, can a data subject also be? That's a question I would ask probably, because I don't know, but I will ask you later. I'm very happy now. We talked about challenges, we talked about regulations, and now we will talk about winning cases from out the network, and I'm very happy to ask Laura to come up to introduce the speakers for today. Thank you very much.
Hello to all. Well, this is a new session in this conference, and we have here the opportunity to see our members, the work of our members from around the world. So it's a good opportunity to see how we are working. We have today 3 examples of strong collaboration at a regional level and producing very, very, very good results. One from Asia, one from Americas, and one from Europe. So the first one, it is my pleasure to call Raul Esteban and Judy Mercado from PSRC, Philippines, to present a paper that was awarded in the regional meeting of APAC.
That's what they say.
Okay. Okay, so Raul is the president of PSRC, very experienced in marketing, professor at the University of Manila, and representative in ESMR. Okay, Judy is the executive director of PSRC, and this paper is about understanding the consumer journey in traffic in a very, very congested urban metropolis like Manila. Okay, so welcome.
Magandang umaga. That's a good morning. I usually start with a story, and my story today is it's about the Exodus. I think it's a Greek word that means going out.
Going out. Exactly.
Yeah. It's usually referring to the Israelites' journey to a promised land. I promise you, my story, my Exodus, isn't as dramatic as the Exodus, but nevertheless, it's as relevant to many stakeholders, marketing, and government authorities in our country today. It starts with the story of the Lenten season. I think this one of the few years, in fact, where the Greek Christian Easter Sunday coincides with the Catholic Easter Sunday.
Yes.
That's the most important week. That's time for prayers, time for reflection. For Filipinos, we take the opportunity to travel and to have a holiday. And we have a lot of places to go to. We have 7,104 islands, depending again on whether it's high tide or low tide. We had some issues with China before on some disputed islands. I was telling them, go get one, it's okay. And so we go to many places in the Philippines. You can go to sunrise, sunset places, very nice, good view. But you can get lost in the Philippines. It's not an easy place to travel. No? But I assure you, even if you get lost, getting lost in the Philippines is more fun. You can ask directions, very easy. And again, asking directions is more fun in the Philippines. Who loves YouTube? Okay, we have a few there. This is our kind of YouTube. Bringing pets. We like pets. That's our pet. Filipinos are also known for eating. We have about 7 eating occasions. Or maybe more. No? 7 is an average, so you can imagine some eating more. No? Our bananas are good. Our chocolate, or Kisses, the brand, our Choco Kisses are also better. No? These are just some of the sites in our country. No? If you just want to chill out, we have our outdoor cafes. Or if you just want to hang out, then you can also hang out in the Philippines. And that's, Easter is the time where we have an exodus. No? We all go out of Metro Manila to have our holiday. No? But that's where the problem begins. This is where it starts. You have the parting of the Red Sea. You have enormous traffic. And the worst thing about this, it's not just during Holy Week. No? It's a daily thing in the Philippines. How bad is it? In 2015, Waze proclaimed Metro Manila as the worst traffic on earth. At least we're number 1 in something. In 2016, Metro Manila improved. It wasn't the worst anymore. It was a place called Cebu. Cebu is the 2nd city in the Philippines. We have 3 cities in the top 10 or 15 worst traffic in the world. But it's not really a fun thing. No? It has enormous impact to our country. No? Some economic development institutions computed that we would waste 3 billion per day. No, that amounts about 500 billion per year. No? Just for perspective, no, our entire infrastructure budget of our country is only 400 billion. The wastage in traffic is more than half of direct foreign investments in our country. And there's also cost to the families. No? If you are an hourly wage earner or a daily wage earner, you can lose money just because of traffic. No? They say you can lose half of your income, your potential income, just by being late to where you have to work. So for marketing companies, they're interested in how does traffic affect their own consumers. No? Probably it affects shopping baskets, shopping frequency, etc. No? For our government authorities, they're also interested in their experiences. Why? Because there's no solution, no quick solution to our traffic. None. it will take 5 to maybe 7 years before we can fix traffic. So their perspective is maybe we can just manage the experience. So at least how can we make it a little better? In trying to understand or capturing all these feelings, thoughts about traffic, we of course had to have a more holistic approach to it. We needed it to be multimodal. We had to combine old and new methods. We're fairly new in digital technology, but we understood we needed in-the-moment experiences. Collaboration is important, specifically collaboration with technology companies. And since this was believe it or not, a self-funded project, we needed it to be as efficient as possible. So these are more or less were the different types of studies we did. Of course, we needed to do some basic reviews, desk research, social media listening, FGDs the traditional way, some mobile diaries. We did some mobile surveys. We even did mystery commuters and some online FGDs. Each approach contributing to a holistic view. We are a firm believer in learning by doing. So although we were fairly virgins with some of the technology, we still wanted to explore and try it out. But there were some difficulties, of course, in new technologies in our country. The environment isn't too friendly with new technology. We have very slow internet, very slow. In the scenario of Tito's a while ago and his watch and the ambulance, and if you have a heart attack, if you get in the morning, the ambulance would probably get notice of it maybe half a day after.
And then it cannot travel in your street
Yes.
as well.
Yes, yes.
So it redefines the word instantaneous. There's very little instantaneous in very slow internet. Off-the-shelf sentiment analysis usually uses English as the basis of the language. In the Philippines, we have, would you believe, more than 120 dialects and languages. In research, of course, we just use the dominant ones, which are about 6. But that's not the bad part. The bad part is in one sentence, we can combine English, the national language, and a regional dialect. So different words, different languages for just in one sentence. And then Filipinos are sarcastic in nature, and we have double meanings in everything. Okay, in your world might be okay. To us, okay lang is actually bad. High blood is a medical term to you. To us, high blood, which is English, means it's getting me angry. Comfort room. You know what a comfort room is? No, some do. That's a toilet, by the way. I grew up using the term comfort room. So I would travel, ask for the comfort room, and they would be confused. What do you mean by comfort room? Another one, dirty kitchen. Do you want your kitchens dirty? No, but dirty kitchen to us is our second kitchen. It's where you do a lot of the prep and a lot of the difficult cooking skills. So there are a lot of language and cultural issues when we try to apply these new methods to our culture and country. We needed to collaborate. Size matters. We needed to see how we could do more instantaneous mobile surveys. We partnered with a company called Snapcart. Snapcart's pretty interesting. In your world where you have a lot of digital online sales, in our country and many Southeast Asian countries, online purchases are rare or minuscule. So this company had the idea of encouraging consumers, shop as usual, take a picture of your receipts, send it to me, and then they would be the ones to do their processing and sell it to the major clients. The incentive is a cashback. At the moment, for instance, in the Philippines, I already have 10,000 people using this app now. Indonesia, where this company actually started, already has about 50,000 to 100,000 subscribers to the application. One of the services it offers, you can tack on surveys to their platform, and of course the dream is you can correlate your study with their consumption or purchase behavior information. So that was the plan. So what did we find out?
Okay, so of course, understanding all of these things coming from different sources of data, no, we look at what is really the experience of the commuters in traffic. If you'll note from the survey, we found that about 56%, over 5 out of 10 commuters would spend about 2 hours, more than 2 hours in fact, in heavy traffic a day. Some people may think it's not that much, or it is much, but to put it in context, that's a maximum of about 20 kilometers travel. So you spend 2 hours in traffic to reach a place that's only at most 20 kilometers away. Okay. And in fact, in another study in the internet, Numbio, we are actually number 5 in the time index spent in traffic. So the longest time spent in traffic worldwide. And really, traffic is disrupting the way of life of consumers inside and out, both physically, they're exhausted after 2 hours of spending time in traffic. They're hungry and thirsty already. They lack sleep because they need to leave very early in the morning. And at the same time, it stresses them out. There's anxiety. I might not reach my meeting on time, so my client might leave me, or I might get fired from work, or my teacher, for instance, for those who are in school, will mark me absent. And at the same time, it takes a toll on the social interaction, the family, which is very, very important to the Filipinos' way of life. So you leave very early in the morning, you arrive very late at work, you don't practically see your family anymore, and you spend less time with them. Okay? And because of this, a lot of coping mechanisms or behavior have been done, and it has been ritualized already and part of their way of life. As I've said, they leave the house early, they prepare all of the necessities, pack your battle gear before leaving the house, your mobile phone, food. It's like you're a doomsday prepper, if you may, before you leave the house, yes? And what would they normally bring? They'd bring medicine, okay? Headache medicine, because traffic will really give you a headache, or that water, because if you're stuck in the middle of EDSA, which is our main thoroughfare, there's nowhere to buy water from, and 2 hours without water would be detrimental to your health. Your laptop, because you could do some work already while you're waiting in a taxi or in an Uber. Okay, and of course food. As RJ mentioned, we eat 7 times a day, and part of that 7 times would be inside a bus. Personal care kit. Of course, you're all sweating, battling it with all of the other commuters, so you need to also clean yourself up, freshen up, and all that. Reading materials to spend again time, and of course, listening to music and earphones. So these are just a few of the things, as the anthropologist would say, artifacts that we gathered from our consumers. The extra shirt, water, hand towel, power bank, because your cell phone, your mobile phone will lose power while you're in traffic, so you need an extra battery for that. Lipstick, sunglasses, umbrella if it rains, and all that. And 78% really say that in coping, they need to leave earlier than usual. So what these people would do would be sleep in the vehicle, catch up on sleep. They'll eat already their breakfast or their dinner in the car. Of course, do your makeup for the ladies. Do your makeup while you're in the taxi, because you don't have time to do that at home. Okay, and of course you need things to do to alleviate that boredom. Social media becomes very important. Listening to music, mobile streaming, music streaming is a big thing as well. Mobile games, video streaming is also something that they do, watching YouTube. And of course, when we talk about mobile social media in the Philippines, it's practically just Facebook. We are, they say, the Facebook capital of the world in Yume, because we want to be connected always with our families, with our friends, and that's a very essential application. And in fact, in the Philippines, I think Facebook is in the Philippines, it's one of the places where we have Facebook free, wherein you can actually browse Facebook without data, because it's just it's a big thing. Of course, other entertainment or social media things would be for entertainment, connection, and Waze is actually also a big thing in the Philippines, because you need to find out alternate routes for when you get stuck in traffic. Okay? So, in effect, there's so many things that they do, and even in how people think about traffic, traffic is already what consumes the Filipinos. 60% of Filipinos think that it is the most pressing issue to be addressed. It's already bigger now than corruption, and no matter what our president says, it's more important than illegal drugs, crime, and pollution. So traffic is something that we want to be solved immediately, in fact. But of course, we know that it's difficult, and that is why how we feel about traffic is very stressful. People are very stressed, annoyed, and these feelings are in fact quite severe, extreme in a way. That's what we've gathered. Very negative emotions are seen in our social media posts about traffic. There's anger, annoyance, fear. But you'd be surprised. Sometimes there's joy and surprise coming out there, because, you know, if you're coming from a very extreme point, any good thing, then you're happy about it right away. Gives you joy and surprise. And these emotions change throughout the week. It's not always anger or annoyance throughout the week. Of course, manic Mondays, we know, would be the worst, coming from a nice weekend, perhaps. And Tuesdays, we noted that they'd be more happy, because what can be worse than Monday? Yeah? And so you're already glad. But of course, coming towards the middle of the week, you say, okay, I know it's not getting better. It's not better than yesterday. So you start getting annoyed again. And towards the weekend, because you'd be able to spend time with your family, there's already anticipation. And towards the weekend, you're happy because you stay at home and avoid the traffic outside. Okay? And again, when we see social media sentiments across the week, it spikes very similarly to what we've gathered from our consumers in our surveys. Okay? So they shift, even not just throughout the week, but even throughout the travel. Of course, there's a full hour that you're there. So before the trip, there's anticipation. Butterflies in the stomach. Is it going to be traffic again? Of course it is. Then there's annoyance as you start your trip. While you're in traffic, you're annoyed at the start, and then as traffic builds up, when you get to the middle of your trip, there's already rage, you're angry already. And then towards the end, it's useless to get angry, there's despair. Okay? And because, oh no, I might not meet my appointment on time. But then after the trip, when you arrive, Zen mode. Okay? I'm glad I'm over it. I'm done. It's done. I can start work already. Okay, I'm happy again and serene throughout the day. So it's a roller coaster ride, if you may, for the average Filipino in Metro Manila. So it affects a lot of things, as we've said, things that are considered very important or most important to the Filipinos. The family, because we value togetherness and we spend less time with our family as a result of traffic. Career, a lot of Filipinos are valued worldwide. Overseas Filipino workers are valued because we value hard work. We work hard, and sometimes it's detrimental if we don't make it on time to our place of work. And kapwa, which is the Filipino work for goodness towards people. it's put to a test when we're in traffic because we get so annoyed, and you don't want to be mean to the person next to you in traffic, but at the same time, you're already late. So what now? We ask them their recommendations or things that they wish they could have. So they do what, of course, they already bring their snacks to work, but they'd like more things available to them, perhaps. No? And better public transport in the Philippines. Knowledge as well. It's not just knowing from Waze the perfect route, but of course, if somebody can push notifications as to which route is most traffic, and then better Wi-Fi connection, as RJ mentioned earlier, and to do also coping is that they post a lot of applications, entertain themselves through, and adjust to try to make things a little better. You know, there's intervention already in terms of inside passenger buses. We have TVs. There's free internet connection also in buses. But at the same time, to make it more fun, there's video inside jeepneys. Okay, if at least you're all having fun singing together. Okay. So despite all this, commuters have accepted that really in Metro Manila, traffic is a new normal. And that's why you still just to find ways to survive. No? So you just hold on, okay? Because someday, maybe not today, that's things will get better somehow. So we're very optimistic in that sense. We're a very optimistic people, okay? And we know this shows really the resilience of the Filipinos. We have fun despite of whatever comes our way. Okay?
So are we there yet? We actually had wanted two stories. The first story is about, in fact, the consumer journey or people's journey. You can have great understanding if you have empathy. No? Empathy means you see it with their eyes, you hear it with their ears, you feel it with their heart. And that's how we can have improved understanding of the people, the data subjects that we have. Understanding the customer journey can be difficult. It's one of the few early occasions where we tried this. Of course, in the beginning, you try to cover as much as you can, but indeed you need to prioritize and define the scope and anticipate phases of the journey. I know purist ethnographers wouldn't want that. They want it clean, no frameworks, but it's more efficient if you do. No? Yes, we all know we need to capture the full and real experience, but we understand, in fact, the real-time methods are more revealing than just the declarative questions. I know you have to identify all touch points, but indeed, the pain points to me are more interesting and more revealing. It reveals to us the entire emotional journey of your customers. And the second story is about changes. I added this last night. It's a lot of talk about changes. For the past 3-4 years, people have been telling me traditional research will die. Fortunately, I'm still alive. Yes, changes occur, and yes, we need to explore new things. And yes, we do need to go out of our comfort zone. Yes, you have to have the right tools and tricks to do it. But in certain countries like the Philippines, so change can happen fast or it can happen slow. Sometimes change does not happen at all. You have to adjust to all these three scenarios, which means you can't just have a leap. You have to stretch with some of what you believe in. You should make the old perhaps new, or make the new more applicable to the current times and make it a little bit old. You need to evolve, I guess, in some countries like the Philippines, evolve a bit strategically with the evolution of the country as well. But indeed, trying new things is an attitude. And I always take inspiration from this story. It's the story of Cinderella. Cinderella is the proof that indeed, with a new pair of shoes, you can change your life. You can change your life in the future and forever. Thank you very much. Maraming salamat po.
Wow. You know, we have huge traffic in São Paulo as well. And we have developed a new job. We have guys selling everything in the middle of the street, water, batteries. So maybe you can send some Filipinos to learn about that in São Paulo. Okay. Okay, the second paper comes from Mexico, and Laura Ruvalcaba will present that. Laura is the CEO of Brain, one of the top market research companies from Mexico. Laura is also representative at ESOMAR, member of the board of AMAI, where she recently worked to harmonize social classes in Mexico. And this presentation is about a survey done in 10 countries in Americas on a very relevant subject for us about millennials. Who they are, what they believe, how they behave. We have a very young population in America, so it's very, very relevant for us to learn about that. It's important to say that each country will be able to publish, sell, attract clients with this report freely. Okay? Laura?
Well, hi everyone. I was going to play a song, you know, the Despacito song. I don't know if you know it. It's maybe.
Make me wanna savor every moment slowly, slowly. You fit me, tailor-made, love how you put it on. Got the only key, know how to turn it on. The way you nibble on my ear, the only words I wanna hear. Baby, take it slow so we can last long.
Tú eres el imán y yo soy el metal. Me voy acercando y voy armando el plan. Solo.
The whole matter of this is if we feel obsolete because of what they said in the morning, we will feel more after this for sure. And if someone is planning to dance this song tonight or did dance the song for the last 30 days, then let me tell you that it's not your target song. This is the top song globally on Spotify, basically because of the millennials. So we'll start with the millennials information we got in this study. Every time we come to this kind of conferences, Lori was very eager, encouraging us to think about what we were going to do regionally. So we couldn't leave if we wouldn't get an idea or a topic or something before the conference. And as my mom says, be careful what you wish for, because it might just come true. So I said, why don't we do something about millennials? And she said, great idea. Then you're going to coordinate it. And you know what? Actually, I think US is super happy to be with you, coordinating this study with you. So anyway, we started this project. It became a huge project, actually, because we wanted to know so many things about millennials. It's basically a holistic approach. We wanted to measure it in oops. I think there's like one more chart missing. Do you have, I gave them the, no, I gave it to them too late, this one. Okay. Okay, before we start, I'll give you we all had like a definition of millennials, what we wanted to study. So definition was taken as people born between 1980 and 1996. That is more or less 20 to 35 years old. And we captured and screened the people not because of their age, but because of the year they were born. So that's something I wanted to point out in the first place. Okay, so we're almost ready.
Just play the song.
Say it also the music, so we can look at that. Okay. Now it's not changing. Yeah, very good. Okay. Okay, so here we are. So we conducted a study in 10 countries, 9 members of WIN, more than 5,000 interviews. We did some, most of them were online interviews. And also we conduct some desk research because we wanted to know some things coming directly from census from each of the countries, like how many millennials do we have in the region, or are they married, or do they have kids? So we wanted to know those things directly from the census. We did like a holistic approach combining census data versus surveys. And I want to, before getting into the data, thank all the American WIN members, because we did a fantastic job together, and it wasn't really easy. Okay, so how important are millennials, basically? Are they really, everybody's talking about them, are they really big enough? How many are they? So we found out that in America, within these countries, we have 200 million millennials in America. So how many are they? Well, it's basically the total population of 7 countries: Colombia, Argentina, Paraguay, Peru, Ecuador, Panama, and Canada. Or it can be almost 2 times Mexico population, or the same size as Brazil, or 65% of the size of the US, or even talking about China, 14% of the population. So we were talking about the very big group of millennials. Before going to the next chart, I would like to know how many of you have a millennial kid? Okay, so it's like a third. How many of you have a kid from, let's say, 3 to 7 years old? Okay, a little bit less. Babies 0 to 3. Some over there. It's like every time I'm asking, it's like few of them. So let's see how many millennials do we have in terms of compared to other ages. Here, the red bar are the millennials, and as you can see, is the biggest segment no matter the country where we interview. In some of the countries, especially in Latin America, it can be maybe almost as twice as the next group. The next group is the purple one, which is Generation X. And for example, Paraguay is having almost, as I said, twice the population compared to Generation X. Especially Canada and the United States were the ones with the lowest segment of millennials, but anyway, it's still being the biggest compared to other segments. What about education? Most of them have completed high school, but there are some differences by country. As you can see, Brazil, Colombia, and USA, they have more people in college or technical schools, basically compared to some others. What about, are they married? Well, we found out that more or less 40% were married, especially in Panama, in Peru, and in Mexico. But in Ecuador and Argentina are those countries where we have less married millennials. If you can see, Ecuador, about 80%, 85% are not married, compared to, for example, Panama, where 54 are married. So we started finding like huge differences. Usually, differences were more likely to be found between Latin America and North America. North America considering US and Canada. However, even between Latin America, there were like very, very different numbers comparison marital status. So we were thinking, let's say if you were to share this information with whomever, let's say Kimberly Clark. Kimberly Clark should be approaching like with a very different communication campaign to a new mom in Canada, not being a millennial, compared to a new mom in Panama or Peru, where most of them for sure should be millennials. So this is how the information starts getting important. What can we say about job? Oh no, this is basically about saying having kids. Obviously in Panama, Peru, and Mexico, more millennials are having kids than in some other countries. And some of them, the average was 1.8, so they have almost 2 kids already when they are millennials. Jobs, are they working? 40% in average do work. You can see that between the countries, we found like similar numbers of millennials working. It was about 30 or 40%, except for Ecuador, where 69% said that they were not working. So Ecuador tend to have like a very different pattern of behavior compared to some other countries. So most of them, let's say more than half of the millennials were working, but if we consider Ecuador, then it goes down the number of millennials considerably within the region. Okay, this came from census data. Now we wanted, once we knew how many were they and if they were working, we wanted to know some many other things about their work, if they were, for example, earning money, if they were saving money, what kind of home they were living at, if they were living in a rented home, if they were living in an owned home. So we wanted to know about the structure of the family and many other things. So that's what the survey was for. And we wanted to know who they were, how they were, the brands they love. We did a section about brands, and also their main concerns. So what did you find? First, their home structure. 4 are living with the family. And family is basically their parents. So we have an important proportion of millennials living with parents. Then some 4 other were living with their spouse, I mean with the wife or the husband, and with their children. And 1 of them is living alone. This is quite different from North America than Latin America. In North America, 25% will live with the family. In Latin America, 47%. So it's much more millennials living with their parents, basically, in Latin America compared to North America. And in North America, living alone is almost twice as in Latin America. It goes from 8 to 20%. Home ownership is larger in Latin America. Renting is more important in North America. So there are like different patterns of living within those 2 parts of the continent. We saw that they worked. 7 out of 10 said that they work. And 73%, almost all of them, said that they were saving. On average, North America saves more money, or North Americans save more money than Latin Americans. And they said that they basically save about 27% of their earnings in North America, while in Latin America is less the amount of earnings they save. 50% use public transportation, basically in Latin America. So there are like differences between how in North America they declare more to have a car they own to transport themselves in the cities. So this is how they are. Also, we wanted to know about health. This came out to be really interesting. We asked them, for health, how do you take care yourself to be healthy, a healthy person? So almost all of them said that they do something for health. However, in Panama, Peru, and Ecuador, one out of every 5 said that they didn't do anything for health. They didn't care about doing anything for health. So it was the 3 countries where more millennials said not doing anything about health. Now, what they do is basically they take care of what they eat. They take care of exercising. Those are the 2 most important mentions, what they said. And in North America, nutritional supplements were the 3rd alternative. They were really important. More than 30% of the millennials said that they were having nutritional supplements for their health, while in Latin America, the percentage was kind of 10% or 15%. It was less than half of them. what means healthy food in terms of the millennials? Well, there were two things that they distinguish as healthy food. Low fat and low sugar foods are basically what they understand by healthy food and trying to get. And also high fiber is the next one that they are trying to get in order to have a healthy diet. Latin America is more like the less is best culture. And by that, what I mean is that they are trying to consume things with low fat, less sugar, less everything. And the US and Canada was on the opposite, also looking for organic things. So those were the things that were outstanding in terms of healthy food. In terms of threats for diseases, cancer was their biggest threat, basically what they said, and more in Latin America than in North America. Okay, we wanted to know if they value time, but we wanted to compare it to something that it was going to be very strong. So we asked them, do you evaluate more the time or the money? What is your position about time and money? And we had only 1/3 saying that they value more time over money. Most of them kept like in the middle. So there was no clear position about doing, for example, money versus time. It was only the US with the largest percentage, but it was only 12%. We also wanted to know if they felt stressed. They didn't. Just 1 out of 5 said that they felt stressed, and more in North America. We wanted to know if they felt patient about people, and only 1/3 said, yes, we are patient, especially men. And this is a jewel we found out. We wanted to know if there were to have an important or need an important advice, who would they ask for or who would they go? And they said that the mother was the number 1, then the spouse with 39%, so it's kind of half of the importance of mothers, then a friend, then the father, and then a sibling. I'm sorry to tell you for fathers, but I mean, and this, we add this question because some of our clients usually said, for example, for laboratories, if we want to communicate in our advertising, someone who millennials will trust in terms of, you know, asking for medicines or how can I get rid of whatever, then the mom is the key life advisor for this group. Okay, concerns. What are they worried about? We measure social concerns and we also measure personal concerns. Number 1 is Latin America is more concerned about everything, and especially when we talk about social issues. The top 3 social issues we had in general, and this was basically among all countries, was number 1, education, number 2, corruption, and number 3, pollution. This was quite interesting, especially talking about education. We never thought we were going to find as a top topic education. Then we also tried to find out what were their personal concerns, and we have the top 3 were their own future, their personal finances, and the death of a family member. Just two more sections. One is digital and technology. This is quite interesting. The way they relate with the family is quite global all over America. The way they relate with friends is completely different. Family is number 1 is in person by far, and then telephone. So it's kind of a very close link, you know, to the family still with the millennials. Friends, North America, texting. Latin America, social media, in person. So this is where we found like interesting differences. Social networks more used on America, Facebook, YouTube, and Instagram. A little bit more social media used by North America. 73% they said that they, yes, buy online, but frequency on online shoppers is basically on North America. Latin America is far, far away as a frequent shopper. Digital entertainment. The subscription they pay more often is Netflix all over America. Almost 50% of the millennials said that they were paying for Netflix. North America, after Netflix, Amazon and Hulu, and Latin America, Spotify and Google Play. And this is the last chart, brands. We did 2 interesting questions. Number 1, open-end question. What brand is your favorite one? The one you love, the one that you engage more, which is your favorite brand? And we expected, and we did, to have a list of 103,000 brands, too many brands. But the interesting thing we found out is that there were 4 brands almost all over the region that were the top ones. And those were basically sports and technology brands, the ones that were the most favorite ones. So they have done, as an industry, an impactful job on the millennials, and they're looking for that kind of industries in order to admire something. The 4 brands were number 1, Nike, number 2, Samsung and Apple, and number 3, Sony. And then we asked them, why? I mean, why are these brands so important for you? And they say, well, because they have very good quality, because they're trustworthy, because they're innovative, they're popular, but they're different also. They have a good value, global, and exclusive. My 3 final key learnings are that, I know we all find like a lot of key learnings, but my 3 tops is, 1, millennials are very different in America, but as you get into some very close and very personal matters, they could be impacted by the same things globally. Number 2 is technology and sports. They have done an amazing job, and a special link. They're looking for what technology and sports brands do. Those are referenced for admiration. And the third one is, yes, all these companies, we can do regional interesting studies, but not only interesting, we can do regional business, and this gives you and us a stronger position for our clients and also for the media. Thank you very much.
If there is any other country interested in do this project, we can give you the questionnaire. We can. Yes. Okay. 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 Do you think we can sell this result, this report, to clients?
I am already selling it. I am already selling it.
Yes.
Yes. Sure. We can make it low. Is there more detail to this, or?
Yes.
So
A
so
lot
yes.
more. A lot more.
So yes. So if there is detail, yes.
Yes.
This is just a nice appetizer.
Yes, yes. This is only a presentation for here, but there is 10 countries, all the details per country. Okay, now let's go to the third paper. It's not really a paper, it's a work. It's about a new platform developed by Western Europe region, the WIN platform. And it's a platform that aims to link the members of this region to facilitate exchange between the countries. So I call Julia Koch from Germany, okay, Magali Peña from France, and Chiara Monetti that nobody knows, okay, from Italy, to present that.
Thank you. So you will hear a lot about that in the next months, I think. But so the WeWin platform is basically a project we started at a regional level in the Western Europe countries. Those of you who were in Hamburg probably already heard about that, but we would like to get it to also to the other ones in the room so that you know what we're up to do. Our idea for this project, when we were thinking about this, was to find, and we were thinking about this since a long time, I know, since before I started working even for the association, was to find a tool that would both enable us to exchange knowledge, but also to carry on relations and to provide support, obviously. So, believe me, I really love to receive your emails, but I would like to find another faster way to solve problems. Like, you know, sometimes I got Skype messages from Johnny and Salim, emails from other ones, WhatsApp messages. Our idea is just to join. Please don't complain. No, I don't. Definitely, I don't. But I think there. I am a millennial, so I can use anything, but no problem. But saving time can also be a good asset for us, definitely. And this, using this unique tool, that would be clearly the first objective. Then, second point, and we're sure that all of our Western Europe members know each other very well, but our second objective would be also to get them to know each other even better. And so to set up a sort of platform that also can enable them to get in touch more with each other and to share also this information. And clearly the third objective is to encourage cooperation even more than what we are actually doing. For this reason, I will now pass the word to Julia, who will explain you which were our requirements for this tool, and all the rest will be explained by Julia and Magali, who really had a lot of work on that, believe me, more than I did actually from the moment right now.
So yes, before we actually set out to choose a technical solution, we compiled quite a large list of requirements that we wanted this technical solution to have. I'm not going to bore you with the complete list, but I wanted to show you which categories we grouped those in. And the most salient issues that we wanted to address and make sure was security, so to make sure that the data is secured, users features, of course, so that the platform is easily usable for all the members, maintenance, so that we can easily change things that we want. And so we actually tested quite a number of different platform solutions and technical solutions. And the one we chose is JamesBot. This is actually the platform, what it looks like right now, so just that you get a little feel for it. We are currently building it. And why did we choose JamesBot? Well, first of all, it really has a wide range of different applications and programs that we can use. So we do not need to use any external apps like Google Drive, Dropbox, or anything like this, which would make it less secure, but we have it all on one spot. And all the data that is on JamesBot is hosted in France, actually, so in Europe, which makes it very safe and good for the Western Europe community. There's also always a hotline accessible, which makes it very easy to use, and it is reachable not only just from any device, but it's also reachable from every country in the world. So there's no issues that it's blocked by any governments or anything. Yet.
So I'm going to give you an overview of the platform. First, we'll focus on the qualitative part. And we will integrate other information later. The first part will be a place where we will share knowledge. The second part, a place to share, to coordinate, and the last one, a place to interact and for networking. So in the first place, you will have information such as ESOMAR Codex, qualitative best practices, and fieldwork information. It's a place where we will find information, operational information, to organize a study abroad. The second one is it's for WIN coordination. So there you will find communication on events, members directory and profiles, and also question and answers to communicate with the coordinator. And the last part, it will be discussion groups with information, with the possibility to ask a request, to share inspiring ideas, methodology, and also a place where, if you want, you can edit an article. And now let's have a look on other screenshots. So here you can see how we ask a request, and you can attach any type of documents. Here you can see what the directory look like, and also how to set up an event. In each country there will be one contact person to provide desired information. The platform will be tested by some members, and it will be first to launch in Western Europe. Thank you.
Will be tested by some members, meaning Titos.
It's working? Yes. Okay. I assume that you will start this platform in Europe, and then we will roll out to the other. Okay.
So we first want to start with the Qual platform, and afterwards we want to integrate more quant information. And when this is done, I think the platform is more usable and more complete, and then it might be the final plan to launch it.
Because we also need to understand how to organize it best. It's going to become more and more complicated as time goes by.
Yes.
We need to find out how to organize it.
Okay. Good. Thank you. Thanks.
Now I have an announcement to make. Now we're breaking for lunch. Your program says 12 to 1:30, but in fact, as I told you before, we're going to have the photograph. So the procedure is the following. We're going for lunch in the garden, in and out, the restaurant where we have breakfast in this hotel. And then we will call you to go upstairs at the top floor where we're going to have the picture. I know this is a very time-consuming thing, and after that we just have half hour of exhibitors. So please, everyone, be careful with your time. 1:30 we need to finish with the photograph, and please go to the exhibitors. There are fantastic new things for you to watch. There are developments in every field. It's been a year since the last presentations. You will find very, very useful stuff. Thank you very, very much. What?